I'm going to share a thought. I know it's Father's Day. I haven't forgotten. We've got a gift for the dads, and we're going to give that out. I'm wearing a gift that my mom, she may feel like that sometime. My wife gave me this morning. She made me a shirt that says the original, Lincoln a shirt that says the sequel, and then there's this little bitty tiny dress that says the encore. Yeah, she got me. And as I looked at it about midnight when I rolled in my house this morning, I was just melting because a few years ago she made a shirt for me that said copy, and it was on my shirt, and then made one for Lincoln that said paste. And the more I thought about it, the more these two words meant to me. That the truth of that statement is such a responsibility. I'll just tell you now, you don't always enjoy following the Holy Spirit, and I'm not enjoying this because I told DJ I'm not sharing this with anybody else today. I said, I'm going to tell you because I got to tell somebody, right? But I'm not sharing it with anybody else today. As I drove to church today, thinking about the original, I realized that the original for me wasn't given the opportunity to be original. Did you hear me? I'm not here to talk about the things my dad did or did not do. My dad wasn't given a chance to be a masterpiece. He was manufactured by a system of beliefs, raised religious, raised in man-made statements and ideas, with an example of someone who was never taught how to be original either. Raised by what we've always done, which is abuse our wives, neglect our kids, and even go further. And I look at that and I thought to myself, for 14 years of my life, my dad, who today I just want you to know I do dearly love, has not hit me, nor has he said any abusive, emotionally damaging statement to me. For 14 years of my life now, my dad has not been an abuser in my life. And yet, today, driving in, I had the moment where I wanted to pretend it was like it was yesterday that he was doing those things. And I realized, in order for me to be the original, I cannot blame the one who came before me, nor the one that came before him. In order for me to be the original, I got to realize that what was projected on me, I will project on others. And if Lincoln is going to be the sequel to the show of which God has placed me in, then what kind of example is he seeing? And for 14 years, I've held that grudge. And it made that grudge seem as if it was every day of those 14 years that my dad was still the same man. But for 14 years, my dad has not been the same. Except in the prison of my mind. Are you with me? I really hate these moments. But I know that somebody in here needs this truth. There's this dialogue in Genesis chapter number 4 that we see take place between Cain and God. Now, I'm not going to dive into the dialogue that we see take place from verse number 8 all the way down through. I'm going to dive into the dialogue that many of us have put on repeat in our minds for far too long. Cain brought some, the Bible says, some of the fruits. Oh, he was a gardener. In Genesis 4, verse number 2, he was somebody that cultivated the ground. He was somebody that was in the reproduction system that God had designed. He was somebody, a farmer is a very close heartbeat to God, because God is constantly planting seeds, constantly bringing in harvest, constantly growing things of nourishment and nurture. God is constantly fighting the elements that are battling his crop, constantly trying to pour in to what he has planted, the things that he knows that that plant needs to survive. You and I being the seed that's been planted and the harvest that he is trying to raise. God is constantly, as a farmer would, trying to preserve the wholeness, the purity and nourishment of the crop of which he's growing. So Cain, somebody that's in a field close to God's heart, grabs some of his fruit. Verse number 3. But Abel, he was a shepherd. Isn't it amazing that a farmer can have the heartbeat of God, but so can a shepherd? See, God will work us, and God will pour into us, and God will nurture us, and God will lead us and guide us in the same moments as he is trying to cultivate and nourish our lives. He's trying to lead them and protect them, and the Lord is my shepherd. Anybody else said mine too? He's got everything I need. I don't have any needs. Why? He's going before me. He's leading me to green pastures. He's leading me beside still waters. He's restoring my soul. And here's two men that are in the heartbeat of God. And one is working from the heartbeat, and one is trying to obtain it. And Abel says, I'm going to bring my best. I'm going to sacrifice. Because, can I just tell you this? It takes sacrifice for someone to change. Sacrifice for somebody to be made right. Sacrifice for a life and a mindset to be renewed and restored. It doesn't happen on its own. You have to give up some time if you want your life to change. You have to give up some friends if you want your life to change. You've got to give up some of your insecurities if you want your life to change. You're going to have to sacrifice something, but thank God you don't have to sacrifice everything, because Jesus became the sacrifice that gave you everything you needed. And Abel says, okay, I know that it's going to take sacrifice for my sins to be covered. I know it's going to take sacrifice for me to be whole, so I will give my best. Yeah, have you noticed this in your life? It's easy to sacrifice the leftovers. I mean, how many of you go to a restaurant and you pay $40 for your family to eat, and you have leftovers at the end? Would you slip your hand up? How many of you have done it? You've paid extreme prices. We all do it. Some of you are going to do it today. The restaurants love today and what it stands for. And so here we go, and we pay it, and we got leftovers. And how many of you have done the same? You took the leftovers home and left them in the fridge until they rotted. Come on. In the restaurant, it's valuable. But the leftovers you don't care about. Now, some of you are like, I'll eat leftover anything. I'm with you. Sometimes I found this to be true. The leftovers are better warmed up than they were in the beginning. Sometimes fried chicken is just good cold. And if I hold you much longer, anything's going to be good, right? The reality is there's sometimes in our lives that we look at the leftovers and we're like, I don't want that. And so I'll give that to God. I'll give the things that are not of value. In other words, I'll sacrifice a little bit of time on a Sunday. I'll sacrifice a little bit of friendliness, a little bit of kindness on a Sunday. But don't ask me to be kind on Monday morning. Right? Gentle on Monday morning? Are you kidding? You raised 3 kids and tell me how. No, you know what I mean? I don't have 3 kids. I've heard you say it. But anyway, I'll give God the little. But what about when God says, give me the best? And Abel says, okay, I'll give you the best. And Cain comes in and says, I want to impress you. I'm gonna work towards my forgiveness. I'll just give you what I have. I'll just give you some. And God shows up, and we see this dialogue in verse number 7. And in verse number 7, he says, you will be accepted if you do what's right. In other words, in verse number 6, can I tell you what God says? Why are you pouting? Because he accepted Abel's and he rejected Cain's, and Cain crosses his arms, throws his thumb in his mouth, and sits there dejected, the Bible says. And God shows up and says, why are you throwing a fit? Why are you acting as if life is terrible and life is over? Why are you pouting? He said, you'll be accepted if you just simply do what's right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin, church, can we grab this? Is crouching at the door. Does that send chills down your spine? It's in the hunt. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to what? Control you. But you must subdue it and be its master. So Cain makes a choice. Do I subdue what is conflicting me, or do I take out what caused the confliction? Do I go and embrace what God is calling me to, or do I take out the one that God is using to call me? And then very next verse, and you can read it later, he gets Abel alone, and what's he do? He kills him. The first major act of violence where a man takes another man's life takes place, recorded in history right here, and it marked Cain for all of his lifespan. And Cain walked around, and the ground would not produce anymore, and these things would not happen for him anymore. And you sit there and you're like, why are things not working out? It's not because you're broken. It's because you haven't accepted the one who came to put you back together. It's not because you are totally messed up. Everybody's messed up. It's because you keep trying to earn it when God just says, accept it to be your truth. And we're looking for somebody to tell us how to live. We're looking for somebody to tell us how to get it right. We're looking for somebody to do what we want them to do so that we can feel better. We're looking for a person to motivatingly speak us into a better mood. We're looking for someone to tell us that we're okay to stay the way we are. And when it doesn't work out, we hate the ones that are going to stand and say, we as a generation of believers need to be different in this world. We need to be a little bit awkward, a little bit messed up when it comes to the way that the world does things. Psalm 91:7, and I'm out. One of the verses that was a big part of our conference, and I'm just going to tell you, God totally changed every direction in the conference. From March to this one, they were not the same. He's talking about this, if you make the Lord your shelter, if you make the Lord your refuge. 3 times conditions are placed on results in this passage. 3 times God says, if you love me and if you trust me, that's how it ends. No evil will conquer you. Hey, you're going to crush lions. You're going to do these things. But it all comes back to the whole, are you going to accept God, or are you going to keep accepting this truth that you got to be the way you are? Because you don't have to be. Because some of us have been 14 years away from what's been hanging us up, and yet we're still just as hung up as if it was the day it happened. Some of us have been going to church our whole lives. That's me. And DJ looked at me and said, your dad did a lot of good in your life. And that's the truth. My dad led me to a place where I heard about Jesus. And I may not remember everything my church taught me, but I do remember the word of God that they put in front of me and had me memorize. And as I stand here today, instead of it being a Father's Day like most, that I stand all broken and mad at my dad, I stand thankful for him today, and thankful for the fact that I still got a chance to have a relationship with him that I've never had. Yeah. But it's not up to him. I found this. Listen to me. I've been waiting, baiting the hook, but hoping he bites. reaching out in the time that I have left over. Giving him chances only when he asks for them. Are you following this logic? Can I give it to you just straight? I feel like it's justified because of all the things that have been done that I can sit here and say, he owes me. That God did not set me free of my debts so that I could hold on to the debts of others. Neither do you have that right. God did not liberate me so that I could keep someone trapped, only to find that the only one that stays trapped is, guess who? Me. Today I heard him say, you're one choice away. Cain was one choice away. God said sin is crouching at your door, and if you're not careful, it's going to consume you. But you can subdue it, and you can master it. And between that verse and the next one, the choice was made. And he chose wrong. And I believe today it's time to take up responsibility. Every grudge you hold on to today is not because of the person that gave you the grudge. It's because you've made the choice to hang on to the sin that's been crouching at your door. Every person that's wronged you today, that you hold on to the wrong, it's not because of the wrong that they've done. You're saying, you're justifying what they've done. Hey, we're not here to deal with what God needs to do in somebody else's life. We're here so God can deal with your life, and then maybe through your life and my life, maybe my dad can be rescued. Maybe your fans, maybe your friends, maybe the people you care about can be rescued too. You say, well, I don't care about them. Then why are they keeping you up at night? Why are their words still echoing in your mind? Well, I don't care what they're doing. I don't care where they're going. I don't care. They can go to hell. No! If you didn't believe that, you would never think of them again, but it's the fact that they haunt you. The fact that that fight's in you, you do care. You say, oh. Well, if you're a child of God, you have no ability to not care. Now, I know I just did two no's and a not in the same sentence, and if you're an English professor, you're trying to justify. Please don't get distracted. Listen to me. Jesus did not come to tell us how to get free. He came to set us free. Are you with me? He came to do it. Aren't you glad that when you go to God for salvation, he doesn't say, okay, if you will do this and if you will do that. No, all he says is, if you choose me, you can have me. If you want me, I'll give you everything I got. And what would happen if that's the mindset we took into the world? What would happen if that's the mindset we took into our relationships? What would happen if that's the mindset of which we try to argue with our spouses and try to discipline our children through? Instead of a be what I want you to be mindset, why not say, I didn't come to tell you how we could be great. I'm here, married to you, because we're going to be great, because I'm going to pursue God, and I'm going to choose God, and I'm going to bring the best. I'm going to give him everything I got. I'm going to lay down on the altar, and I'm going to say, God, it is all yours. And if 1,000 fall around me, and 10,000 die, I will stand here knowing that when I stand in God, these evils will not touch and control my life anymore. Hey, you know what I found? If we were as consumed with the Lord as we're consumed with everything else. I mean, imagine if you thought about God as much as you think about your enemies. All right, let me go. Some of you are like, never had an enemy in my life. Okay, imagine if you thought about God as much as you thought about your finances. I mean, imagine if you thought about God, teenagers, college, singles, listen, as much as you thought about your boyfriend or girlfriend. You say, oh, none of those apply to me. I'm in the clear. Imagine if you thought about God as much as you think about your children. As much as we think about disease and bad news. Imagine if the church would just stop thinking towards God and thinking from God and about God and working through that. let's start working from salvation instead of trying to work towards it, because God does not accept the ones trying to earn position with him. God rewards the ones who have made him the position of which their heart stands in, and made him the position of which they think, the position of which they see. And today, I'll just tell you, men, listen to me. Every man in this room, listen to me. God has called us not to be men based upon the generation of men that have come before us. We are the originals of our family, setting new trees and setting new examples out so that our kids can grow towards God. And we need some men that will rise and stand. I don't care what the rest of the world's doing. I'm going to be a little bit romantic with my wife. I don't care what everybody else thinks. I'm going to make her my everything. Not the golf course, not all the sports, not all these things. I'm going to make Jesus the center of everything in my life. And if 1,000 men fall off the wagon, I'm going to take the ride. You will not always finish with the people you started with, unless you make Jesus the only one you start with. You'll finish with him. But as much as I would love to think, and in my heart feel settled, that I will pastor with David and Dennis and Steve for the rest of my life, at any moment, God could call those men somewhere else. As much as I would love to think that Nick and I and David Lawson and I are going to be the friends that we have and have these friendships. And many of you, I can go down the line, Dawn and Michelle. I can look out here, Dick Keep. As much as I'd like to think that that man's going to live forever and all his wisdom and knowledge that he's poured out into me is always going to be there, the reality is the people that start with you don't always finish with you. And it doesn't mean they're messed up. It doesn't mean they quit. It could mean they're called away, or it could mean they die. But I am going to say this. I don't want to be a church that's a church because every other church around us is a church. I want to be the church that's a church because Jesus died for the church, loved the church, built the church, and made you and I a part of it. And I want us to be the church that's not in competition with everybody around us. I don't want us to hold the grudges. I don't want us to hold all the hate. I don't want us to be caught up in the ritual. By God's grace, I want to see men of God rise and say, if I mess up, I will not be like Adam and blame God for the mess. Hey, we always look for somebody to blame in the midst of our failures, but I have found that it is from failure. Failure, I heard this quote, is the material of which God uses to build the future. And so from it, may we rise and may we stop shaming everybody that hurt us and start leading them an example to the one who takes shame away. And we say, well, I'm the way I am because let's finish it right. I choose to be this way. I choose it. And I know I quote the verse a lot, but God brings this verse into my life so many times. Choose today who you're going to serve. I hear that verse in my head at least once a day. You know why? Because the Holy Spirit knows that I make bad choices. And teenagers, it's easy to stand in this moment. I wish this was the moment you could stand in every single second of every single day, but it's not. And just a little bit, Alan, you'll be gone, shipped off in boot camp with somebody yelling at you, telling you how ugly you are and how mean. They're just mean. Listen, that can't be your truth. You're a good-looking guy. You're buff, you're ripped. You got a great personality. And in that moment, you got to realize that the truth that you're hearing is not even their truth. They're trying to get you to find your own truth. Because maybe one day you're on a battlefield and you're going to have to fight and your battalion goes down. And if you quit fighting, you're going to go down too. And so they shape you and they mold you, and sometimes it feels mean, and sometimes it feels hard, and sometimes it feels hurtful, but it's building your core, and they're not trying to shape your truth for you. They're asking you and pleading with you to stand within your own truth, and I believe today that God is calling us men to do the same. Stand within this truth. that God, Eve ate the apple because I wasn't the man I need to be. God, she was there. She was talking to the snake. I was there too. And I did not do what I should have done. I did not eat because of her. I ate because I chose to. I am not flawed because of her. I'm flawed because I chose to be this way. And so, God, take me, spare her. God, if any punishment, if anything has to happen, take me. That should have been the conversation, but instead it was like every one of us want to be. We are the way we are because of the circumstances, because of our work schedules, because of everything else. What if you became who you were because God said to be that way? And what if we stood, and what if we made a decision to say, I'll stand if nobody else is standing. I'll stand on behalf of my family. I'll stand on behalf of the families around me. I'll raise my children towards the Lord. I'll be the leader that God has called me to be. I will not make my wife beg me to go to church. I will go to church without her. If she's not even going to get up and go, I'm still going to go. I will get the kids ready myself if that's what it takes. I will help put the kids to bed. I will bathe them. I will read them stories. I will play with them. I will be found faithful, not because I want to be, but no, I choose to be, because there's going to be times I don't want to do it. I don't know about you, but I'm going to serve God not because of you and not because I'm a pastor, because this is what I'm choosing to do with my life. To live for Him, to die for Him, and through them know that through my life God will make many more originals. Lincoln's maybe in humor and in heartbeat, the sequel. But God help me, and men, listen to me. If I raise him to be like me, I have failed him in the upbringing. He needs to be raised to be who God has called him and chose him to be. And so in this moment, what are you going to bring to God? Your leftovers, your best. What choice are you going to make? What grudge are you going to keep hanging on to? Sin is crouching at your door, and it will consume you. Subdue it. What needs to be let go so that God can be grabbed onto? What is it that needs to be surrendered so that something can be found? What is it today? Whether you're listening online or you're here, what is it today, men and women, that we need to say, okay, God, I choose you. I sacrifice this. And I'm coming after you. You're one choice away from a better day. You're one choice away from a better life. You're one choice away from a better future. Thank God you are one choice away from the 1,000 bad decisions that you've made, losing every bit of their power and control over you. We had one teenager, and it's their story to tell, that they took the stage simply to say, I get high. It blew my mind. I would have never suspected it. I literally had the math drop moment because we've been pouring in, and how did we miss it? That was the first thought. How did we not see it? And then God called me back to the moment and said, this isn't about you. Did you just hear what they said? They stood in front of a congregation of peers and said, I get high, but I need you to help me be accountable. And I'm putting it out in front of you because this is the place that I'm laying it down. And in that moment, it's not about all the other moments. It's about the moment that the kid made the choice to say, I'm done and I'm giving it up. And at some point, we got to realize that the choice that we make to do Jesus makes every other choice lose its power, because God has set that child free. And so today I had to make some choices in my life. You got to make some choices in your life. And one good choice could take away every bit of the power the enemy has been holding over your head. And so with heads bowed and eyes closed, we're going to stay online because I want you to follow through the moment. With heads bowed and eyes closed, who in here needs to make a choice too? Who in here needs to say, okay, I got to choose God. I got to go all in. I got to be all about Him. Who today needs to say, if 1,000 fall, not me. If 10,000 die, I'm still going. These evils will not touch me, God, because I'm going to hide myself in the cleft of the rock. I'm going to hide myself in your truth and let it become my identity. If that is you today, I'm just going to ask you to respond to God. I don't know what way you need to respond to God. I don't know what you need to do. Maybe you just slip a hand up in the air, and can I send a young soldier that's fired up and ready to go into your moment to pray with you? And if there's anybody here today that would say, today I am choosing Jesus, would you just slip a hand up in the air? Just hold that hand up in the air, and I'm gonna have these kids come pray over you. Can you do that? Would you just slip a hand up in the air? See, this is the moment of courage. It's not for us, it's for you. There's some lying in this room, and I know it. God help me. Please tell me I didn't come to the only perfect church in the area, because I missed. I have no desire to hang out with perfect people. None. I want to hang out with something real. And I'm going to tell you now, I am going to be real with you. I got to. It's not a need to. I got to get to my dad. I got to get my arms around his neck. I got to ask for his forgiveness because I've held on far too long to things that he's not even doing anymore. And I've made him the victim of my abuse. And I've made him the victim of my frustrations. And my dad deserves more from me than I'm giving him today. And I'm not going to stand and wait anymore. And I'm not going to lie to you. I don't believe for a moment that everybody in here is okay. And if your kids are going to stand in front of you and say, I'm choosing Jesus, what would it do in their lives if you took a stand in front of them and said, me too? Me too. Enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Oh, will you meet me here again? Can't control what tomorrow will bring. Here through the valley, yes. Every mercy's new. No, yes. I'm not enough, God, unless you come. Here again, you're all I want, 'cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Oh, for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. Oh, the Lord is in this place. Okay? Let's kill the camera.